There is no alternative conclusion other than that the Russian state was culpable for the attempted murder of Mr. Skripal and his daughter, and for threatening the lives of other British citizens in Salisbury, including Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey. This represents an unlawful use of force by the Russian state against the United Kingdom.
UK Prime Minister Theresa May speaking after Moscow ignored a midnight deadline to explain how a nerve agent developed by Russia was used in an attack on an ex-Russian spy and his daughter in London. May took a hard line on the issue, saying the 23 Russian diplomats have 1 week to leave the country. The UK canceled all high-level bilateral contacts with Russia. May also vowed to impose sanctions and canceled an invitation for the Russian foreign minister to visit. Additionally, British ministers and members of the royal family will not attend the World Cup in Russia this summer. Let's bring in associate editor at Commentary Magazine, Noah Rothman. What do you think? Well, first of all, it's quite galling that Moscow thinks that it can get away with this and dismiss it. But then what should the United States' response be?
Well, I'm not sure why they wouldn't think they could get away with something like this. This is very similar to the poisoning of Alexander Litvinenko in 2006 with a radiological polonium material. And the response of the UK was very cautious. Admittedly, they have every reason to try to downplay something that is, Prime Minister May said, is an act of war. But now we're not being very coy at all about this. The crisis with Russia has been a slow-motion disaster that we've been trying to manage for the last decade. And we're getting very close to a dangerous place. In 2014, they downed a civilian airliner. 2015, a warplane invaded NATO airspace and was shot down. Now we have an attack on sovereign British soil using WMD. It's being called an act of war in words that are not exactly as plain as that. Russia may miscalculate at a certain point, at which point we would have to respond with proportionality because we couldn't back down from such an act of aggression. That's why this is such a dangerous power. It's not because Russia's a peer competitor. It's not. It's because it has a closing window, it's a declining power, and it's acting very aggressively, and we need to respond in kind.
Right. They would. I mean, they're not going to. If there is not a reciprocal response or like a proportional response, then I think that they will obviously just keep doing it and worse.
Right. They call it deterrence for a reason. We need to deter these acts of aggression by making very plain.
And who knows what they're thinking about doing to one of the Baltic countries. I mean, that is also a very real concern. While I have you here, if we can get to two other issues, and that is we had, Syria just continues to be a horrible problem. Assad is still there. And listen to what our general just said.
The use of nerve agents as a weapon under any...
Is it too strong a statement to say that with Russia and Iran's help, Assad has won the civil war in Syria?
I don't think that is too strong of a statement. I think they have provided him the wherewithal to be ascendant at this point.
I think that's actually very big news, that Assad, that our stated policy was that he had to go. Now, one of our generals is testifying in Congress saying, actually, he's in a position now to declare that he has won the civil war in Syria. Yeah, it's been our unstated policy to say, essentially, that Assad can rule this rump state that he now controls. But we have ceded territory in Syria to Iran, to Russia, to Turkey. It is now a great power contest, and we have deployments there in order to try to deter action against our allies on the ground, the Kurdish fighters and what have you. But we're going to be there for the foreseeable future. I can't say that this seems like a grim assessment, considering that Mr. Assad is going to be in place in whatever portion of this country he controls. But there's a de facto partition of this country. We're in control of parts of it. Russia and Iran are in control of parts of it. And that's going to be there for the foreseeable future. So to the extent that Assad has won this civil war, it's sort of a Pyrrhic victory. Well, and also we still have, just 3 weeks ago, we had a situation where American forces responded and ended up basically obliterating Russian missionaries. I'm sorry, mercenaries, obviously not missionaries, mercenaries who were there fighting on the ground. And so in some ways, the first topic that we talked about is also being played out in other places around the world, including in Syria.
Yeah, it's all part of the same story, which is our failure to contain a revanchist Russia. We invited them in 2013 to mitigate the crisis in Syria using chemical weapons. They did not resolve that crisis. They used it as a reason to invade in 2015, to intervene in that conflict. And now we are all in this theater shooting at each other's proxies without very many mechanisms to de-escalate a conflict should it arise. It's an extremely dangerous situation. It shouldn't have been been allowed to metastasize like it has been. But now we absolutely need to focus on deconfliction, de-escalation.
Well, and in a week from today, Putin will be reelected president. I can announce that a week early. You see how see what I did there? All right. Noah Rothman, thank you.